My name is Valda Covey. I was 27 years old. The Christmas my family decided I didn't belong to them anymore. It was one of those nights where the cold didn't just sting, it lingered. The kind that crept through your boots, numbed your fingers, and made your breath feel heavy in your chest. Snow crunched under my shoes as I stood on my parents' front porch, arms wrapped around myself, staring at the door I'd walked through my entire life. Christmas lights blinked softly along the roofline. Warm yellow light spilled through the windows. I could hear laughter inside, real laughter, the kind that comes from comfort and familiarity, from belonging. I knocked once. Nothing. I rang the bell. Footsteps approached. My shoulders relaxed. I caught sight of my mother's silhouette through the frosted glass, her familiar shape moving closer. Relief washed through me so fast it almost made my knees weak. The door opened. She looked straight at me and smiled, politely. "I'm sorry," she said calmly, like she was addressing a stranger. "I think you have the wrong house." For a moment, my mind froze. The words didn't make sense, like they were spoken in the wrong language. "Mom?" I let out a short, confused laugh. "What are you talking about? It's me." Her expression didn't change. No confusion, no hesitation. "I don't recognize you," she repeated, her voice smooth, almost rehearsed. The cold suddenly felt sharper. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Mom, it's Valda, your daughter." She held my gaze for half a second longer. Then the door closed. Not slammed, not angrily. Just shut. I stood there, staring at the wood grain, my reflection faint in the glass. My ears rang. My hands trembled, though I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or something deeper. For a brief, desperate moment, I told myself it was a joke, a sick prank, something they'd laugh about once I walked back inside. Then I heard it. Laughter. Clear, carefree, alive. The clink of glasses. Someone raising their voice over music. Christmas continuing without me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Evan, my younger brother," I answered. "Don't get mad," he said immediately, his voice low and rushed. "It's just, we couldn't let you in." "What?" I whispered, still staring at the door. "You know how things are," he continued, irritation creeping into his tone. "It's complicated. Please don't make this a big deal." "A big deal." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, I heard another voice behind him. Laughter again. Someone teasing him. Then Evan muttered, "Not meant for me." "She still thinks helping with rent means she's automatically included." Silence. He hadn't hung up. I ended the call without a word. I walked back to my car slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. The house loomed behind me, glowing and warm. The same house I'd helped save last year when Dad fell behind on the mortgage. The same house where I'd paid the utilities when Mom said things were tight. Where I'd covered groceries, repairs, even the gifts sitting under that tree. And tonight I was a stranger on the porch. I sat in the driver's seat, hands steady despite everything, and unlocked my phone. I opened my banking app, canceled the automatic rent transfer, closed the joint emergency account, blocked the secondary card I'd given Evan, just to help with gas. Each tap felt deliberate, final, like doors closing, not in anger, but in clarity. By the time I pulled out of the driveway, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Mom, Dad, Evan, and Aunt. I didn't answer. By morning, there were 61 missed calls. And I felt nothing. That was when I knew this hadn't started that night. I hadn't always been the outsider. For most of my life, I was the dependable one, the fix-it daughter, the one who stepped in quietly whenever something went wrong. When Dad's job was restructured 3 years ago, it was my paycheck that kept the house from slipping into foreclosure. When Mom needed emergency dental surgery, it was my card they swiped without asking. Evan, barely out of college, was still figuring things out. I never complained. That's what family did, right? You helped. I got a steady job straight out of college, worked overtime, skipped nights out, lived in a cramped apartment, and ate instant noodles more times than I could count. They called it luck. I called it sacrifice. And whenever they needed something, they called me. "Valda, sweetheart, we're a little behind on the electric bill." "Valda, your brother just needs gas money. Can you help with the mortgage for a bit, just until things stabilize?" A bit turned into months, months into years. I became the silent safety net, invisible until needed. I remember the first time it felt off. Thanksgiving last year. I paid for everything. The turkey, the sides, the pies, even the overpriced bottle of wine Dad insisted on. But when it was time for the family photo, Mom handed me the camera. "Just take it, honey," she said. "We want one with just the family." I laughed it off, told myself it was nothing. But the little things kept piling up. Evan got a brand new SUV for his birthday, a surprise from our parents. When I asked why I never got anything like that, Mom smiled. Oh, Valda, you never needed anything. You're so independent. Independent, the polite word for alone. I told myself it didn't matter. I was the older sibling, the reliable one. But whispers followed me. She thinks paying a few bills makes her important. She throws money around. But what else does she have? And Mom, always smiling, always sharp. You know, Evan has such a bright future. If only you could be a little more supportive. Supportive. I paid his student loans, covered his rent when he needed time to find himself, co-signed his credit card so he could build credit. And when I finally tried to pull back, when I said things were getting tight for me too, her voice turned soft and disappointed. Family is about sacrifice, Valda. That Christmas night, standing alone in the cold, something inside me finally shifted. I wasn't their daughter. I was their sponsor. And for the first time in years, I stopped paying. I didn't sleep much after that night. Not because I was crying, I wasn't, but because my mind wouldn't slow down. It kept replaying moments I'd filed away for years, moments I'd brushed off as misunderstandings or bad timing or me being too sensitive. Now they lined up neatly, like receipts I'd never bothered to read. The morning after Christmas, I sat at my tiny kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold. My phone lay face down beside it, still buzzing every few minutes. I didn't check it. I already knew what I'd find. Panic, accusations, demands. None of them would start with, "Are you okay?" I thought back to when this role had settled onto my shoulders, quietly, without ceremony. I was 16 the first time I covered something I shouldn't have had to. Dad's truck needed repairs, and he'd come into my room late at night, voice low, embarrassed. "Just until my next paycheck," he'd said. I handed over the money I'd been saving for a school trip without hesitation. He hugged me, told me I was mature beyond my years. That word again. Mature. Another polite word for useful. By the time I was in college, it was normal. If something broke, if a bill was late, if Evan messed up, it found its way to me. I didn't even realize how automatic it had become until I noticed how rarely anyone asked how I was doing. When Dad slipped on the icy porch and ended up in the hospital, I paid the bill without being asked. No one told me he was okay afterward. I found out 2 weeks later through a casual comment in a group chat. "Oh, yeah, he's fine now." Fine enough to forget I existed. My phone buzzed again. I flipped it over despite myself. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." Evan, "Stop being dramatic. You're scaring Mom." Dad, "Call your mother." Still no apology. I thought about my 27th birthday, the one that came and went without a single call, no cake, no card. Evan posted pictures later that night from a dinner they'd all gone to together. I hadn't even known it was happening. When I finally mentioned it weeks later, Mom frowned, like she was genuinely confused. "Oh, honey, you should have reminded us." Reminded them that I existed. I pushed the phone away and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The truth was uncomfortable in its clarity. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd replaced me. As long as the bills were paid, the house stayed warm, the fridge stayed full. My presence was optional. And when I tried to step into a space that wasn't transactional, they closed the door. The realization didn't hurt the way I expected. It felt quiet, heavy, but calm. Like the moment after a storm passes and you realize the damage has already been done. That afternoon, I went for a walk. The city was unusually still. Post-holiday silence, snow softening every sound. Families passed me on the sidewalk, bundled together, laughing. I watched them without envy, just observation. I'd spent so long telling myself I was strong because I didn't need anyone. Now I saw the lie beneath it. I hadn't been strong, I'd been alone. My phone rang again. This time I answered, not because I felt guilty, but because I was curious. Mom's voice burst through the speaker, already trembling. "Valda, thank God. What did you do?" "Straight to business." "I stopped paying," I said evenly. There was a sharp inhale. "You can't just do that." "I did. The rent didn't go through. The cards declined. Evan's gas." "I know." Her voice cracked, panic bleeding through. "Your father is under so much stress. We need you right now." Need. Not miss, not hurt, need. I felt something in my chest then. Not anger, but clarity sharpening. "When have you needed me for anything other than money?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Silence stretched. Then her tone shifted, smoothing itself into something colder. "Family doesn't keep score, Valda." I almost laughed. "Then stop acting like I owe you." You're being selfish, she snapped. Your brother is struggling. I pictured Evan's new SUV, his paid-off loans, his endless second chances. And what am I? I asked. Comfortable? Independent? Another pause, a longer one this time. You always land on your feet, she said softly. You don't need us the way he does. There it was. The unspoken rule finally said aloud. Because I could survive without them, I was expected to. I ended the call without another word. The next day, I finalized everything. Removed my name from the emergency account. Canceled every automated payment. Called the landlord. Polite, brief, final. No drama, no explanation. Just done. The backlash came fast. Group texts. Missed calls climbing into the dozens. Messages swinging wildly between guilt and rage. Mom, you're tearing this family apart. Evan, all this over money? You've lost it. Dad, we can fix this. Just come talk. Fix it. Like I always did. That night, I sat on my couch, lights off, the small Christmas tree in the corner blinking quietly. I decorated it myself. No presents underneath, just lights. For years, I'd sent money instead of gift, assuming that was enough. Now, the room felt peaceful in a way I wasn't used to. My phone buzzed again. Evan this time. Are you seriously doing this? He demanded. Mom's crying. I'm sure she is. You ruined Christmas, he snapped. I smiled sadly. Was I even invited? He scoffed. You're unbelievable, after everything we've done for you. That almost broke me. Not because it hurt, but because it was so absurd. What have you done for me? I asked. Silence. Then, anger. You think throwing money around makes you better than us. No, I said softly. I think it made me invisible. I hung up. I didn't cry that night. I didn't rage. I didn't doubt myself. Instead, I slept deeply for the first time in years. Because somewhere between the closed door and the unanswered calls, I finally understood. I wasn't abandoning my family. I was stepping out of a role that was killing me. And they were about to find out what happened when the fix-it daughter stopped fixing everything. It took less than 24 hours for the panic to turn ugly. At first, the messages were frantic. Questions stacked on top of each other, sent so fast they blurred together. By the second day, the tone changed. The fear hardened into accusation, the confusion sharpened into blame. My phone buzzed nonstop on the kitchen counter while I made breakfast. Eggs sizzling, coffee brewing, ordinary sounds grounding me while my family unraveled on the other end of a screen. I didn't answer, not because I was scared, but because I wanted to see who they became when I stopped cushioning the fall. By noon, the calls shifted from Mom to Dad. I finally picked up. What the hell are you thinking? Dad barked, skipping any greeting. The rent bounced. The landlord called. Do you have any idea what you've done? I leaned against the counter, calm in a way that surprised even me. I stopped paying for things that aren't my responsibility. You don't just stop, he snapped. We were counting on that. There it was again, counting on it. Not me, the money. You should have had a backup, I said. I was never meant to be it. His voice lowered, tight with anger. You're throwing a tantrum over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I repeated. Yes, your mother was trying to keep the peace. You know how sensitive things get. Sensitive, that word, always used to excuse cruelty. She shut the door in my face, I said quietly. She said she didn't recognize me. Silence, then a dismissive scoff. You're exaggerating. I closed my eyes. I was standing on the porch in the snow, Dad. Another pause. I imagined him rubbing his temples, already exhausted, not by guilt, but by inconvenience. You always take things personally, he muttered. That's your problem. No, that had been their luxury, letting me absorb everything quietly. I'm done, I said and hung up. Minutes later, Evan called again. His voice was different this time. Tighter, sharper, panic bleeding through the anger. You can't do this to us. I already did. You're ruining everything, he snapped. Mom can't stop crying. Dad's furious. The landlord's threatening notices. And? I asked. And you don't care? His voice cracked. Not with sadness, but fear. I thought of the SUV, the paid-off loans, the gas card, the endless safety net I'd provided. I cared for years, I said. You just didn't notice. You're acting like a victim, he scoffed. All this over money. I laughed, short and bitter. Money or respect? He didn't answer. Instead, he went for the jugular. You think you're better than us now? No, I said softly. I think I'm done being used. He inhaled sharply. You're unbelievable. So are you. I hung up again. That evening, the group text started. Mom, family meeting tonight. Dad, we need to talk this out like adults. Evan, You owe us an explanation. Oh, I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Me, fine. The house looked the same when I arrived. Warm, glowing, decorated like nothing had cracked beneath the surface. The smell of pine and cinnamon hit me as soon as I stepped inside. Fake comfort. Mom rushed toward me, eyes red, arms half extended like she expected a hug. I stepped past her. You've gone too far, she whispered. We're family. You didn't seem to remember that on Christmas, I replied. Dad stood near the fireplace, jaw tight. Evan paced the living room, restless, angry. We can fix this, Dad said. You just need to calm down. Calm down. The universal phrase used to silence women when they start speaking clearly. I am calm, I said. That's why this is happening. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. You turned your back on us. No, I said. You shut the door first. That's not what happened, she insisted weakly. I pulled out my phone. My hands didn't shake. I hit play. Evan's voice filled the room. Careless, dismissive, smug. She still thinks helping with rent means she's automatically included. Silence crashed down hard. Mom's face drained of color. Dad's head snapped toward Evan. I didn't mean it like that, Evan stammered. Yes, you did, I said evenly. You all did. Mom's voice trembled. We love you. No, I replied. You love what I provide. Dad stepped forward, anger flaring. You think money makes you superior? I wanted respect, I said. I'll settle for peace. This is cruelty, Mom sobbed. Cutting off your family? Using someone until they disappear is cruelty, I shot back. I just stopped disappearing. Evan slammed his hand on the table. So what? You're just going to take your money and walk away? Yes. Dad's voice softened suddenly. Manipulative, pleading. Valda, please, we need you. That sentence sealed it. Not want, not miss, need. I'm done, I said. I walked out into the cold without looking back. Their voices followed me to the door. Anger, tears, accusations, but none of it stuck. The air outside was sharp, clean, honest. My phone exploded with messages the moment I drove away. I didn't read them. That night, I slept peacefully. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. They weren't angry because I hurt them. They were angry because I stopped saving them. And the worst part? I wasn't coming back to do it again. 3 days passed. Not the dramatic kind of days I'd expected. No shouting matches, no tearful breakdowns on my kitchen floor. Just quiet. The kind that felt unfamiliar at first, like a room after everyone leaves and you're not sure what to do with the space. My phone still buzzed constantly. I didn't answer. The messages shifted tone again. Panic cooled into bitterness. Bitterness curdled into blame. Mom, you've destroyed this family. Evan, Dad says this is all your fault. Dad, we never raised you to be this cruel. Cruel. I stared at that word for a long time. Cruel was standing on a porch in the snow while your family laughed inside. Cruel was being forgotten unless you were needed. Cruel was being loved conditionally and told it was sacrifice. But saying no, that was only cruel to people who benefited from your silence. On the 4th day, there was a knock at my door. I knew it was them before I even looked. Mom stood closest, eyes swollen and red. Dad was just behind her, jaw clenched, so tightly like it looked painful. Evan hovered to the side, arms crossed, defensive even now. We need to talk, Mom said, voice trembling. No, I replied calmly, blocking the doorway. We don't. Dad pushed forward slightly. You don't get to do this. You turned our lives upside down. I met his gaze evenly. You were standing on my shoulders. Losing your balance isn't my fault. You canceled everything, he growled. The rent, the cards. Are you out of your mind? Out of my mind for finally stopping? I asked. Or for noticing you never stopped me? Mom's voice cracked. This isn't just about money. Your father's health. You didn't call me when he was hospitalized, I said quietly. You called me when you needed the bill paid. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Dad scoffed. You're throwing a tantrum over a misunderstanding. I pulled out my phone again. Hit play. Evan's voice echoed between us. Careless, dismissive. She still thinks helping with rent means she's automatically included. Mom's face went pale. Dad turned slowly toward Evan. Is that true? Evan stammered. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, I said. You just never thought I'd hear it. Mom reached for me. I stepped back. We love you, she whispered. No, I said gently. You love what I give you. Dad's voice hardened. Cutting off your family isn't peace. It's cruelty. No, I replied. Cruelty is using someone until there's nothing left and calling it love. Mom sobbed. Evan looked away. Dad said nothing. I closed the door. Their knocking continued for a while. Then it stopped. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was light. Weeks passed. I cooked real meals. I walked without rushing. I slept without bracing for emergencies that weren't mine. My shoulders lowered inch by inch, like I'd been carrying something invisible my whole life and finally set it down. One afternoon, my neighbor mentioned they'd lost the house. Evan took a job at a grocery store. Mom blamed Dad. Dad blamed Mom. They stopped speaking to each other. My phone buzzed one last time. Mom, we lost everything. Your father blames me. Evan won't talk to us. I'm sorry. Please come home. I stared at the message. Then I deleted it. No anger, no guilt, just clarity. That night, I found an old photo album in my closet. Pictures of a smiling girl who didn't know yet that love could come with conditions. I put it back on the shelf. Then I stepped outside. The sky was wide, the air was clean, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Not because someone needed me, but because I didn't need to disappear to be loved anymore.